All right, real quick, while we on halftime of the Lakers game that I got on over here, I just wanted to give y'all my quick thoughts on how the Commanders are doing so far in the draft. The Commanders on my mind. They always on my mind. I didn't leave y'all for the vast majority of y'all that are here because of football or Commanders or whatever the case is. First pick, Josh Connerly out of Oregon. I I had to sleep on it. I liked the pick initially. Obviously, it's not sexy, and there were a lot of names on the board that as fans we become familiar with throughout the process, and we want to hear, especially when they slide down the board, and especially when you're picking two picks before the Eagles, and the Eagles always just happen to get shit right when they pick in the draft. Like this, they never miss. It's always just like, how did this guy slide? And it's because your team let him go. But even upon sleeping on it, I even like it even more. I've gotten to see a lot more football guys, O line guys talk about this pick, and my main takeaway was teams like the Eagles, especially. I mean, I'm going to use the Eagles as an example a lot because it's so personal to us, right? It's so applicable to us. Teams like the Eagles don't become who they are and as good as they are without making picks like this, investments. Not necessarily the sexy pick. Obviously, if you get a bona fide top 10 guy just fall into your lap, you take him. But you have to draft on the O line. Like a lot of our fan base just seem to have forgotten a lot of our complaints throughout the season, even the postseason. It's like Jaden has to roll out so much. Even the coaching staff, if you know what you're watching, like you could see the playbook was limited because we have to keep guys in to chip the edge on the right side for Andrew Wiley or things of that nature. So now that you get Josh Connerly, you upgrade two positions because you could put Brandon Coleman at left guard or whatever guard spot. Allegretti can play left guard, and you can put Brandon Coleman at right guard until Cosme gets healthy. Cosme comes back, you put Coleman at left guard, and all of a sudden you're looking at potentially a top five unit with Tunsil, Coleman, Biotish, Cosme, and hopefully Connerly pans out. But even upon watching this film, I know everybody loves to talk about the viral moment at the Senior Bowl when Mike Green ran him over, which is a name that a lot of people wanted us to take, despite we don't have to get into the specifics, but he's just off of a lot of guys' boards, and I'll get into that. I'll get into that in a second. But he just not on. He just didn't seem to be on our draft board. I know we brought him in for a top 30 visit, but clearly we valued this pick more, and we knew it came out that teams were trying to trade up to get him. The Texans and somebody else was going to try to come get him, so he wasn't going to be there if we traded down. In our division with all these edge rushers, Micah Parsons, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, now Abdul Carter, the whole Eagles D line. You need to be able to trust your tackles on an island. You need some type of mean streak in the interior. This, like, bro, whatever you may think about our O line before this pick, it either makes a strength, a bigger strength, or it shores up a weakness. And in my opinion, the right side was absolutely a weakness. Brandon Coleman going over there doesn't guarantee that. It doesn't guarantee anything. I feel like you putting Brandon Coleman at his more natural position at guard, fortifies a lot for us because now his short arms and relatively, slow hands or whatever isn't going to get exposed. Where he's inside now, he can just go put his hands on people. He's going to be able to go and deal with the Jalen Carters and the Dexter Lawrences and whatever. So great pick to me. And like I said, when you guys talk about players that fell and you messed up the draft because you didn't pick the guy I like, and he's falling. It's like, bro, I understand that argument more so when we're picking towards the top of the draft, 2 through 10, 14, 15, whatever. When you're picking 29th and a guy is there, it's because 28 other teams passed on him. And then when you pick Josh Connerly and the draft continues to play out, and the name that you were upset at us not taking at 29 is still on somewhere on the board near our second round pick, which is at 61, maybe we should trust the football guys whose job it is to look at these type of things year round, night after night, day after day. Trust their judgment, especially when they haven't given you a reason to not trust it. But that's my 2 cents on Josh Connerly. We can get into the next pick. Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss, who a lot of guys had a first round grade on. Like he's 6'1", 190, prototypical size. Can play press man, can play in zone. He's a Dan Quinn, Joe Witt pick, and he shouldn't have been at 61. A lot of guys in this draft are falling, be it character issues or injury, and that just seems to be a common theme amongst a lot of, I know you see this name over here, and I'll give my 2 cents on this real quick. Initially, I wasn't the biggest Shador guy. I don't think he's it's consistent with this entire QB class. I don't think it's a lot of guys on this class in this class that you'll kick yourself for not taking. But I thought he's obviously statistically speaking the most accurate quarterback in the class. Even the eye test tells you that. But I thought the athleticism left a lot to be desired. I guess his attitude, and he interviewed poorly, and it's rubbing a lot of the league the wrong way. I don't want to get into all of that. We don't know what went on, and I have no problem with an athlete carrying his swag on his sleeve, and obviously his last name has a lot to do with how they're perceiving it. Instead of it being a confidence, it's arrogance because of his dad, who I also think should kind of quiet down a little bit, especially throughout this process, because as you can see, it's costing his son millions of dollars, and his image is in shambles right now amongst the public. A lot of people are backing him and saying that he doesn't deserve this, but it shows how the teams view him. So initially, I didn't think much of Shador's slide, especially when it came out that his slide was just mainly due to his perceived, lack of ability, which I think is completely fair and within the realm of fair game when you're talking about the draft. But then Dylan Gabriel just got picked ahead of him, and Tyler Shugg just got picked ahead of him, and I'm just like, okay, 5'11", trash ass Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel is just not a better football player than Shador Sanders. So now I'm starting to think of some hidden politics in there as to why he didn't get picked, and it's actually upsetting because I was really hoping that this was just strictly a football thing. And if you don't want to pick Shador because you don't believe in Shador, that's on you. But when you're picking Dylan Gabriel over, come on, man. Really, you can't give me a good reason as to why Dylan Gabriel got picked over him at all. Not one. But that's that. Trey Amos, physical in the run game, can cover him. He's the aggressive kind of cornerback that this defensive coaching staff likes. We could put him on the outside. We could move Mikey Sainristil still into the slot. So this is another case of getting better at two positions. Now, you've got veteran depth. Obviously, you have your star power, Marshawn Lattimore. Sainristil still kind of had a coming out party last year. You put him in a slot where hopefully he's able to man that spot for years to come. You brought in the veteran presence with Jonathan Jones. You re-signed Noah Igbenogany, who kind of had a resurgent year for you, and now he can serve as the depth that he's meant to. So Noah Igbenogany as CB4, he's better than your CB4. He's better than your CB5. And you bring in Trey Amos to hopefully start on the outside opposite Marshawn Lattimore, and we turn the weakness into a strength. Two birds with one stone. So I think we're having an amazing A-plus draft, despite us not picking Mike Green or Luther Burden, Will Johnson, who I'm not going to lie, I wanted, but I mean, this staff has done its homework, and if they believe that the injury concerns with Will Johnson, the character concerns with Mike Green, Josh Simmons, if they believe those things were enough to keep them away when it was time for their selection, and they value Josh Connerly and Trey Amos to the level that because Adam Peters even said, bro, we were going to trade down, but if these guys were there, we're taking them because we can't risk losing them. Let's trust them and let's see what they got. Let's welcome them to the family, man. But that's my thoughts. I got to get back to this game. Hope y'all have a good night.